Hello everyone, and welcome to my Stamina Templar PvP build guide. About a year ago I made my first Stamplar build video, and now I'm returning to it because I want to update a couple things, and in general I just like talking about Stamplar. Ages ago I used to main Stamblade, but after I started playing other PvP characters, it's really hard to tell what my main is anymore. I personally play a lot of classes in PvP and switch them pretty often. Either way, I can easily name Stamplar as one of my mains. It's one of my favorite classes in the game, I was playing it a lot in PvP and PvE, and I guess I know a bunch of stuff about it. So let's talk about Stamplar. Right now there is update 41 and a new meta. Nightblades became even stronger, Sorks are more OP now as well, and all the other classes kind of the same, with Templar being in the lower part of tier list, like it was for a while now. This is of course pretty sad, but it doesn't mean it's weak or that you cannot play it. In my opinion, it's pretty decent and you definitely can play it and have fun while doing it. The build I'm using now, which I call Classic Stamplar, for me at least, is pretty much the same like a year ago, but with a few changes in skills. For the gear I use Deadly Strike, Rallying Cry, Balorgh, Markyn Ring of Majesty and One Piece Trainee. Right now I'm playing like this in BGs and I like it. All classic, good old stuff, nothing fancy, just decent, reliable gear. But of course you can change some of it if you'd like. The most obvious change in my opinion would be Ratchet Vitality instead of Rallying Cry, which might work better for open world. I don't really know though, because I play almost only BGs. Non-defensive backbar options could be Clever Alchemist, Olorime, Direct Trickery, Kid Marcher's Cruelty, or maybe even Phoenix Moth. Also you can use Master's Maces with a One Piece monster set instead of full monster set and Trainee piece. It won't be as good as it was last patch, but Templar's spell damage goes pretty high with this setup, so it will benefit Master's Maces. You can also use 2 damage sets frontbar like Deadly and something else, and equip Watershrun Ice Staff backbar. That way though you'll have to drop monster set or mythic. If for some reason you want to replace Deadly, I'd say best options would be Shattered Fate, Stun's Favor, Rush of Agony, then you'll have to use Top Charge, maybe Dragon's Appetite, but you'll have to use Rain Slashes for that. Innate Axiom looks interesting, Mechanical Acuity is good, I guess, if you like that set, Essence Thief is good, that's my guess too, because I've never really used it. Anyway, I just think Deadly is still a no-brainer on Stamplar and there is no reason to change it. In the end of the day, you can do my previous build, which is dot meta with Dragon's Appetite, Master's Maces and Watershrun Ice Staff, but once again, due to Master's Maces nerf, it won't be as good. Maybe BRP dual wield might work as well. Now let's talk about skills, and here is where I made some changes. In my year-old build, I was using Repentance and Top Charge. In this build, I don't use any of those skills. Repentance, although it's good and fancy, isn't really needed, because you don't need that much recovery. And for healing, you can run a better option, like Living Dark for example. Although, if you like Repentance, you can still use it. I just don't think it's a good choice anymore. In this place, I now run Power of the Light. This skill got buffed a bit, and overall it adds a lot to our burst combo, which is very important on this build. I'll talk about it a bit later. Toppling Charge is still good, and you can still use it. Right now I personally chose to run Binding Javelin here. Toppling Charge costs Magicka and does magical damage, stuns your opponent, puts them off balance and gives you 4 seconds of magic protection, reducing your damage taken by 10%. It's also a gap closer. Binding Javelin costs stamina and does physical damage, and stuns your opponent. It's not a gap closer, but a ranged ability. And the most important part about it is that it ignores the enemy's resistances and cannot be blocked. This is actually pretty OP and can help greatly against tankier players. So you want to use Toppling Charge when you need a gap closer, if you are using Rush of Agony or Stun's Favor, if you need that extra damage mitigation after using it, if it's easier to sustain max skill instead of stun one, and if you just like it more or feel like using it. And you want to use Binding Javelin when you want a cool looking spear stun, which ignores resistances and block, when you don't really care that much about needing a gap closer, if you would rather use a stam skill and can sustain it, and as well as the previous choice, if you just like it more or feel like using it. I myself was recently playing a lot of Javelin and I like it. Although I have to say that it definitely eats a bit of your stamina and sometimes you might be caught in a tricky situation because of it. Other than that, this skill is OP and also greatly contributes to the Stamplar combo that I'll be talking about soon. Another skill I changed on my frontbar is my ultimate. Instead of Dawnbreaker, I'm now using Crescent Sweep. Once again for a burst combo, and also I just like it more than Dawnbreaker. Mostly visually and the fact that it costs almost twice less than Fighter's Guild ultimate. Both options are viable of course. In general, on front bar only 2 skills are mandatory: biting jabs and radiant oppression. All the others are interchangeable with each other and some other options. For example, you can use Living Dark here as an extra heal, you can use Random Slashes even without Master's Maces, just because it's a great skill regardless. Other good skills on either front or back bar can be Race Against Time, Vampire's Mist, Razor Caltrops, Turn Evil, or Crushing Weapon if you are using bow instead of staff, for example. But these are some niche options in my opinion. If we return to front bar for one more second, then I can say that you can also drop Camo Hunter if you want to put there some other skill, but I'd say Camo Hunter is well worth it. I feel like it might be not bad idea to swap it if you are using Master's Mace, for example, and want to run Random Slashes in that place. Then maybe change your ultimate to Dawnbreaker as well for Fighters Guild passives. But anyway, this is the setup I'm using right now and I quite like it. Now let's talk a bit about combat. My typical playstyle on Stamplar looks like this. I start with pre-buffing all backbar buffs, and sometimes I press jabs before engaging into fight, just to get that major brutality and sorcery. Then I'm doing the burst combo. I apply major breach and power of the light to the enemy, then I hit it with javelin, then ultimate, and then I usually beam and the guy is dead. If not, you can do some jabs and beam after that. Usually it works pretty good. Of course, not all people gonna die after this combo, but it's still a nice combination of skills in general, and it gets the job done either way. If we're not talking pre-made combos, but just combat in general, then it's more or less the same. Try to keep power of the light on target, stun it whenever you can, press ult when ready, and try to burst it down with a beam. Don't forget about jabs as well, obviously. Unfortunately though, they don't do the best damage, but are still important to keep our damage buff and as a spammable before we can beam. If you will ask, at what percentage should I beam, I'd say probably at around 40% of target's HP. Just be aware that you can get interrupted, so keep that in mind if you try to beam a good player standing right next to them. It's usually nice to go a bit away so they can't bash you. Now I want to give my pros and cons about class in general. Pros. Stamplar is fun to play. Amazing healing, and you can always regulate it by adding or removing additional healing or defense skills, depending on what do you feel you need right now. Best execute in the game, and a nice burst damage with the right playstyle. Pretty good at range, even as a melee build. Cons. Not the best damage overall. Even though you can get to pretty high spell damage, it doesn't really translate to actual damage. Requires skill to play well. Overall, with its strong and weak sides, and the fact that Templar isn't considered anywhere near meta right now, or honestly for quite a while now, I still think it shouldn't discourage you to play it if you enjoy the class. I find it much more satisfying to play the class you like and clap people on it, than playing meta 24/7 just because it's good. Although, don't get me wrong, I do both occasionally. It's just a complete different feeling between those two. Stamplar is one of my favorite classes, and with the right build and skill, it can be very enjoyable to play. Be sure to give it a try, maybe try different sets, skills, playstyles if you want, and have fun. Thank you all for watching, and goodbye.